Hello, Matt.
Hi, Josette.
You always beat me to it, so I'm glad I got to say it first this time.
You look like you wanted to go.
Yeah, I was eager for that.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the Makers Podcast. We're very happy that you're with us this week. And this conversation was really very inspiring and I think quite a soul-searching, honest assessment of a person's journey. We got to interview Matt Flanders, producer, writer, creator, storyteller, as he calls himself. And yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation.
Oh, me too. I mean, Matt's, first of all, I've only known him because of you and also through his movie that's out now, Ted K, all about the Unabomber. Amazing film. And so when you see someone's art before you meet the person, it's kind of amazing to get to know their backstory and kind of what led them to this thing and how much synchronicity there was in his life growing up and up to this point in his life that made him a perfect fit to be a producer on this film.
Yeah, exactly. And he just was so honest and so kind with and so generous with sharing his journey to authenticity and to authentic power and I guess wild success, because let's be honest, my gosh, the movie is incredible and he is just a hugely inspiring individual. So we hope you enjoy this conversation with Matt Flanders.
Hi, Matt.
There he is.
Hello,
Mr. Flanders. How are you, my darling?
I'm good, thank you.
That's good. Well, this is very joyful to have two Matts together on a call.
Always.
I think for the purpose of this one, I'm probably going to have to refer to Matthew Jackson as MJ because that's also his nickname. But I always feel weird calling you MJ.
Monkey.
It's bizarre. Look at that sweet baby.
Oh, it's a puppy. It's a puppy in the frame.
That's Whopper. That's little Whopper. Yeah.
Whopper, yeah.
Oh, so cute. My guy's down on the floor. He would not be happy if I picked him up right now. So content down there.
I love that we're all obsessive dog people.
I know.
Well, welcome to the Makers Podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
We're very happy to have you. And we had the huge pleasure. I had the pleasure of watching it in person with you, but Matt watched over the weekend too, your fantastic new film, Ted K, in cinemas now. Everybody please run and watch it because, my God, dude, I'm so proud of you. It's extraordinary. It really is such a beautiful film.
Thank you very much. It was an adventure, to say the least.
It was so good, Matt. I don't think that there's so much content, so many films, so many TV shows to cycle through and obsess over what should we start tonight. And it was one of those movies that just gripped me from the beginning. And it just blew me away, man. I loved it so much.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. And I mean, I think it's, I think it's a subject matter that people know a lot about, but it's been so often told from the perspective of the FBI who are looking for him.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to, to kind of tell it from a different perspective from the Unabomber himself. And, it's all based on his words and it's all based on the stories of his neighbors and the people in his community. And it's much more about what he was doing in Montana during those kind of 20 years, more so than kind of his reign of terror across the U.S. So.
Well, and also I just love how Tony's chosen, and I mean, obviously I'm sure you had a lot to do with it too, but how he's chosen to use this as like a vehicle almost to speak to the stuff that we're dealing with today, like with climate change and with how the environment is being impacted. Like he's used Ted as a vehicle to explore so much current stuff that it just feels so, although this happened a long time ago, it feels so current and so it's like such an important film, actually, the way he's chosen to do that.
Yeah, I think that every kind of decision from, strangely, Montana hasn't really changed that much in terms of aesthetics since the 90s. And just kind of the wardrobe and everything makes it feel like it could be today. There's not a lot there that is like, oh wow, this feels like a period piece. You know, it feels modern and current. And I do think those are issues. You know, the issues of climate change and the issues of kind of tech addiction are very real today. I mean, those. Although I will say, when this was first sent to me, the script was sent to me in 2013. The things that appealed to me about it then are not the same things that I'm responding to now. Like initially, it was just it was the Montana element and it was the environment element. I didn't clock as much how the technology element of it is so important. You know, back then it was just sort of, in 2013 even, I wasn't kind of aware of how addicted I was to my devices, to computers and all of that. So it's you know, it's very interesting that, you know, I think that we, you know, look at social media and we look at our kind of technology as a way that kind of brings us all together. And we're able to communicate with our friends around the world a lot easier. We're able to keep track of our family members and our friends and people we went to elementary school with. And yet somehow that unfortunately becomes a way that we rely on that to connect us with people rather than just reaching out and giving someone a call or going and have coffee with them and having a real human interaction with them. And so that is way more on my mind these days. And it's just funny how the film, even though I didn't get involved with the project because of that, I have found things in the film that matter more to me now than they did back then when it first came to me. And I find that interesting. It's sort of like, as the project has evolved, I've evolved too. And and that's really exciting, you know, because if the project had just sort of stayed the same throughout this long process that it's taken to get it on the screen, that wouldn't be as interesting as if it is, you know, if I've evolved as much as the project has.
I mean, I love that because I also feel like I believe so much that these things that we bring into the world, these creative projects and whatever we're making, I think become their own things, you know, in a way. And especially a film does this, right? Like, I mean, it's so many people involved in actually birthing a project and getting it from page to screen. And as more energies kind of join in, it does become its own entity. So it's kind of cool that you're then having this feedback with the entity itself, you know, entity. It makes it sound like a bad alien. I mean it in a good way, a good entity, a joyful, delicious entity.
Yeah, sometimes they can be, yeah.
Sometimes they can suck the living life out of you. Also, that's interesting too. So, I mean, obviously this has been a long journey. I know that, but I mean, could you speak a little about like how the project came to you and how long it has actually been in the making?
Sure. So I was working at Plan B for about 4 or 5 years. And right towards the end of my time there in 2013, I received this script. It was sent to me by Melissa Optimar, and who is an executive producer on their project. Yeah. And she, you know, was interested in Plan B doing it. I read it and I was intrigued by it. I passed it along to the rest of the company and said, hey, this is kind of interesting. It may be, you know, at the time, it felt a little small for what they were doing. You know, it's a very contained piece in a way. And I felt like it was maybe not right up their alley, but I sent it along because I found it super interesting to me. So they passed on it. I kept talking to Melissa and to Tony, the director, writer-director, and I said, you know, giving them ideas about how to move it forward. And they said, well, would you like to produce it, even if you're not at Plan B anymore? You know, feels really right because you kind of see it the same way we do, and you are from Montana, which is intriguing, and since so much of the action takes place there. And so we just decided to do it, and it it took us several years to get it going because, when you're trying to attach talent, it's very important to kind of wait. If you go out to an actor, you want to give them time to read it, time to respond. You don't want to move on to another actor before, you hear back from the first. And, we were being informed or kind of instructed all along that it would be good to attach a certain level of actor to get financing and blah, 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 blah. And so we tried a little bit there, and it took forever. We were getting really frustrated, and we were like, you know what? Like, rather than going out and trying to find someone who's getting all these offers, like, let's just say we're doing it, put it out there and see who comes to us, And so our casting director, Jennifer Vendetti, who is an amazing casting director who really likes to find real people, and she's one of the casting people on Euphoria. She loves to find do street casting, and so she put it out there, and we got a lot of interest from various agents, and luckily Charlton Copley's people were in touch and asked more about the project. We were super excited by the idea of him. And so he sent us a tape, and it wasn't what we had requested. We had sent a couple scenes from the script. And rather than do that, he took it upon himself to do a bunch of research. He found out who Ted Kaczynski was and kind of dug into it and found this one interview that a recorded interview, audio interview that he did. And I think there's only one that exists on the internet.
Oh my God.
And rather than do the sides and the scenes, he just memorized that interview and did it in the exact voice. And it was so spectacular. Tony and I just looked at each other and said, this is the guy, so hopefully we can make this work. Wow. And we just went back and forth, and obviously scheduling was difficult because we really felt like Montana was the second lead character in this film. Oh, yeah. And we needed all the seasons because Montana in winter is very different than Montana in the summer and fall and spring. And we wanted this to feel like a documentary. We wanted it to feel very real. And faking seasons just would destroy that if you had a bunch of snow and so we really didn't want to fake anything when it comes to the environment because it's such a crucial part of the story. So finding an actor who was willing to kind of work with us and come back and forth multiple times for shooting was, luckily he was game for that. And so we started filming in February of 2018. And we filmed for a full year. We wrapped up our shooting in upstate New York to get all the city stuff. We shot a couple days in San Francisco to get those scenes of him mailing the bombs and walking around the cities. And we, and then because of the way that Tony filmed, which was a lot of improv, a lot of just let the camera roll and see what comes of it. There were hours and hours and hours. I think that there was something like 200 hours of footage.
Good gosh.
That then had to be trimmed down. And I think the first cut was, a little under 4 hours. And then
God.
Yeah. And then that got down to our, and so the editing process was another full year. So it was a full year of shooting, a full year of editing. Wow. That then involved finding the right composer, Blank Mass, who came in to do the music. And that, so good. Was another stretch of time to get the music right. So luckily, we were independently financed with some, found some amazing partners who were not knocking on our door every minute asking what was going on with the movie. I mean, they were eager to get it out and eager to find out what's happening, but they allowed Tony the time he needed to get it right. And then when we're thinking about releasing it, it's in the middle of a pandemic. And so Tony felt strongly and I felt strongly that it would be really great to have this in the theater just because it is such a visual film, and just on the big screen, it would just, be that much more impactful. So we kind of waited to see if we could wait the pandemic out, and it didn't happen. It just kept going on. So we started submitting to festivals, got into the Berlin, the Panorama section of the Berlin Film Festival.
So amazing.
But that film was, or that festival at the time was an online festival or digital. There was no, live element to it, which was disappointing. But that's where, out of that festival, we got our deal with Neon and Super LTD. And then they were trying to figure out what to do, because they too wanted to see it in theaters. And so they held it a bit. And then eventually we all just decided that, this kind of February, there weren't a lot of movies coming out. Like, let's just try to get it out there and see how it goes. And so they released it in theaters and on digital on the same day, on February 18th. So it's funny, it was basically from the time we started filming and doing some of our test shooting in Montana to the time it was released was basically 4 years.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And the first time you received the script was 2013. It's nuts.
2013, yeah.
It's nuts.
So amazing. The fact that you shot in Montana made me so happy, because I live in Colorado currently. It's where I'm from. And I just, whenever I see mountains from Romania or Bulgaria or, the American South doubling as the Rocky Mountains or somewhere, in this area, I mean, a person like me can tell immediately. It's very clear that it's not. And so when I first read about it before I watched the film, that you'd shot it essentially in the place where he had his cabin, was just, I was sold at that second. That authenticity that came with that. And the people, the feel, all of it, it's unmistakable. Like you said, it hasn't changed that much, but it's unmistakably like rural mountain town for sure.
So that was super important to us. And for me, casting local actors, there is, I did not want, I didn't want to see, this Hollywood version of a Montanan, which with like the perfect beachy waved hair and veneered teeth, and a flannel shirt, but she has a whole new face. Like, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Her forehead's not moving.
It's just not what, you don't find that in Montana. Like, the people are very real and beautiful, of course. I mean, I think we found like there's obviously some beautiful people in the film, but just real faces and real, again, we wanted to feel like a documentary. And some of the people in the movie actually knew Ted. Some of the people got to meet the characters they were based on. So the woman who played the librarian got to sit and talk to the real librarian. Wow. The next door neighbor, there's a scene in the movie where he starts working at a sawmill at his neighbor's. And that whole scene was based on what the neighbor, Wendy Gehring is her real name, and she told us the whole story. And so those actors were able to kind of talk to her about that story, about what that was like. She told us what he was wearing that day, so we based the costume. It's a very strange costume. I don't know if you remember.
You couldn't come up with that. Yeah.
He's wearing like a trench coat with no shirt under it, with his sleeves rolled up, and you're like, it's in the middle of kind of this, a sunny day, and he's wearing this thing. You're like, what is going on? And she's just like, he was super dirty. He was wearing this trench coat. So that's why, it seems odd that, truth is stranger than fiction. And that's what he wore that day. So that's what we put him in. And then when we were building the cabin up there, we were trying to figure out where to put it. And we found the footings. There were the cement footings in the ground still. And it said 1971 scratched into one of them.
God.
So he and his brother, Ted Kaczynski and his brother David, built the cabin in 1971. It was 10 feet by 12 feet. It had no water. It had no electricity. And Ted lived in it for over 20 years.
Wow.
Good God.
And, so his garden was still there. The fence around the garden was still there. His root cellar was still there. There's like a structure where he would store his bike and some things like a small roof structure that was still there. His irrigation pipe was still there running from the creek. So Charlton saw that. We talked about that. Charlton was very intrigued and like, oh, let's see if I can do this. So there's a scene when he's doing that. And then all of a sudden you see the water start pumping through and you see Charlton's face like light up. Oh, it worked. Well, that was real. I mean, he was very excited that he was able to do that, you know. Charlton chopped down those telephone poles or the power lines when he's chopping down power lines. He chopped that thing down. He cut through the wall of the cabin where he broke into that house. Like he did all of that stuff. So you know, that authenticity was crucial to us. And I think it comes across in the movie. I mean,
my God, it so does in absolute in just heaps and bounds. Because I mean, it's everything I love about filmmaking. I'm such a stickler for authenticity, and you know, I mean, Matt and I obviously are collaborating on things, and it's my favorite thing because it almost gives you an ability as the audience to just relax because you're not having to try and make leaps in your mind because it's all there for you. Like if I don't have to now imagine something more about a person because they don't kind of look really like that thing. It almost, I don't know, it just gives you permission to just let this thing come upon you in a way that I think when we're missing little bits like that, we don't get the chance to do. And I love that you were able to be in that space and on his land. It's almost like a weird sort of witching in a sense. Like you kind of were like conjuring up the spirit of Ted Kaczynski that was kind of, you know, it's so tangible in the film. Like that film is so visceral and so haunting in a way. And I almost wonder if it, you know, you were picking up bits of leftover energy of his, you know, that kind of made its way onto screen.
There were many days that like I was up there by myself at times and the land is beautiful. It's a little over an acre, the size of his property, and it's surrounded on different sides by other people's property. I mean, there's not houses immediately within view, but they're not far. Like that walk down to that sawmill is, if you walk down the road, it's maybe a 7-minute walk. You know, it's not far from other people's property. But there's something beautiful, but there was also something strange just knowing what was happening there, the plans that were hatched right there. You know, the whole movie felt, there's just so many serendipitous things that happened along the way. You know, Tony had said, I would love to shoot on the actual property. I'm like, that's probably, I don't see how that's possible, but we can, you know. And so somebody took us up there. We found out it was privately owned. You know, the FBI multiple people had owned it. It was still surrounded by chain link fence and barbed wire, and had the signs on, you know, sections of it. And we were like, okay, well, so we found out who the owners were, and they had just literally cut down a couple trees and were about to flatten it because they wanted to build like a family cabin there, like a hunting cabin or just a weekend kind of, you know, just
like a little retreat or something.
Yeah, a little retreat. Nothing big because it's a small piece of land, but they wanted to build something there, and they had started just getting ready to kind of level it because it's quite the land itself is not even. So they were going to level it. And we got there literally days before they were going to start doing that, and set up a meeting to sit down, have a drink with it. They were hesitant, I think, but they were excited about a movie. That's kind of a cool thing. And then it turned out that the wife, Andy, her name is, went to high school with my sister.
Oh my God.
And so having beers and find out that she knew she's like, oh, your name's Matt Flanders. Oh, do you know Jenny Flanders? And I was like, yeah, that's my sister. And she said, oh, we were high school classmates. And so I think that really helped, you know. It helped to kind of just make them feel, because and this was the whole thing in Lincoln too, you know, people were hesitant about you know, New York, Hollywood people coming in and, you know, and not getting it right.
Yeah.
And I think it helped to have somebody someone like myself, who was originally from Montana, who could say, you know, My dad worked at the bank in Helena. My mom owned a bookstore in Helena. That really helped with the librarian. My mom used to sell books to the librarian. So she opened up as soon as I told her that. So there's all these kind of serendipitous things that had to take place for the movie to happen the way it did. For example, that the scene with the helicopters flying around and dropping the charges in the mountains.
Yeah.
It was in the middle of fire season in Montana, and it's impossible to get a helicopter at that time. I mean, because they're used for firefighting. But for some reason that week, like, there were no fires and the skies were clear and these helicopters were available, and we were able to get them.
Good.
There was just all these little things like that, we really wanted a big heavy snow for those crazy winter scenes. And there's like 3 feet of snow on the roof of that cabin. And that happened, and that hadn't happened in years and years and years that the snow was that thick. So there's just all these cool things that happened that made it.
The movie gods were smiling on you.
Yeah, it made us feel like we were doing the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
We hope you love listening to the Makers podcast as much as we love making it.
And if you would like to show your support and keep us going and keep us making magic and bringing these gorgeous creative conversations to you, perhaps you'd consider becoming a contributor to the Makers podcast. If you'd like to do so,
visit anchor.fm/themakers/support to get started. And now, back to the show.
I'm interested to hear a little. Obviously, I know a lot about you, but my dear friend MJ over here does not know as much. And I'd love to hear a little about your journey to becoming a creative producer. You're not also, I mean, this is the thing I love most about Matt Flanders, is that he's not one thing. I love this about all my dear collaborators. He's an incredible writer who's written some very beautiful screenplays and just pieces, I guess, essays and such. He's also just... now let me blow smoke up your butt just for a small second. Sit back and enjoy Matt Flanders. He's also just like probably the most intelligent human being I know, and a person who has such a deep, incredible understanding of story structure and how to tell a story. And my mentor, actually, the person I credit my writing career to, is this man right here on the call. And yeah, I will forever be in your debt, Mr. Flanders, for teaching me how to write screenplays, because, my God, you had a lot of patience with me when I was a baby writer, not knowing what the hell I was doing. But I would love to hear a little about your history and sort of how you find your way to this beautiful expression of who you are now.
I think I've always been a storyteller since I was a young kid. I mean, I just remember even when I was like taking a bath as like a small child, I'd be creating stories. Like, it was never just a bath. I was like on the Titanic, or I was like, on some deserted island, and my mom's like, what the hell happened in this bathroom? There's water everywhere. But I was always telling stories and kind of all, imagination, creativity. And in 3rd grade, I was writing plays that my lovely teacher, Mrs. Clark, allowed me to, she would let me, if I could stop talking for just stop talking during class. And eventually at the end of the week, I could do my play, and I would get all my friends together and we would write these plays, and I would direct and star and do it all, but it was so cool that she allowed that and encouraged that. And then she actually encouraged me to get into theater. And so there was a great, community theater in my town called the Grand Street Theater, which I credit with, teaching me discipline, teaching me about theater and acting and story and all of that, but also really honestly credit them with like saving my life. Because as a little like gay kid growing up in Montana, where you are bullied for not playing sports and not fitting in. Yeah. I found a place there to belong. And I found acceptance, and I got affirmation for my talents, and I felt whole, and beloved there. And I loved going to that place. And I spent much of junior high and high school going to this theater, and it was like my family, and still some of my best friends in the world are people that I met there.
Oh, that's so incredible.
And I love that place, and I you'll see them thanked at the end of Ted K. Like, I will always thank them in whatever I do, because that place is incredible, and continues to be so for young people. They have an incredible like theater program for young children and young adults, and it's thriving and doing so well, and it's just a really special place. So upon graduating from high school, you know, I always wanted to go elsewhere. I went to Paris as an exchange student in, you know, junior year of high school, and
so fabulous.
And I just loved getting away. I really did not, you know, because I didn't feel that I belonged in Montana.
Yeah.
I just wanted out. And so I ended up going to school in Washington State to Gonzaga, and I studied theater there. I went back to Paris for another year of college, but always involved in the theater program. At first, I was kind of trying to find something more practical, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to, you know, I'll get into business, or I'll do broadcasting, or I'll do something. And but I just couldn't stay away from theater. And I ended up, you know, that's when I got back from France, I was like, I finally decided that I was just going to commit my life to that. And graduated, did kind of some semi-professional theater around the Pacific Northwest. Then I moved to LA to be an actor. And really realized, I mean, it's tough, you know, as you all know, how tough it is. But also as a gay person at that time, like in the 90s, and looking a certain way, like I look like I should be a leading man, but I wanted to be the leading man's like, you know, autistic brother. Like I wanted to play the character roles, but I didn't. Yeah. You know, I look like somebody once called me Mr. Soap Opera face. Like, oh my God, I was like, so I looked a certain way. And so I was being encouraged, like, oh yeah, for all these leading man roles, but then, oh, you got to butch it up. You got to butch it up. You got to butch it up. And it was really, you know, and I was closeted, and I already didn't feel, you know, it was kind of soul sucking. And I was like, I just felt like I never belonged anywhere, you know, in any part of LA. It didn't feel right. And so I decided to move to LA or New York. And I said, as soon as I get on that plane, I'm never going to lie again.
Oh my God.
And I flew to New York, I landed, and I got off that plane, and I never lied. I never lied anymore about who I was. And and I just really, New York helped me find my authentic self. I left entertainment. I was doing some. I had been screenwriting along the way, and I had written some stuff while I was in LA, and I used that to get myself a job in the education field. I was working for Columbia University online, and they had these like business writing courses, right? And it was like it was like they would send these imaginary like emails to the students as if you were their boss, asking them to do a task. And so I would create the kind of narrative of these fictional.
That sounds so fun. It sounds delightful, by the way.
It was super fun. And we would write like the voice. Some of them, they'd get a voicemail from a boss, and it would be like telling them, you know, to create a pitch deck for something, or to do some technical writing about a product or whatever. So
it was fun. Cool.
It was fun. And then through that, I was like, you know what, like teaching and like education is kind of cool. And I saw something in the newspaper or something about the New York City Teaching Fellows, that they would pay for you to get your master's degree, and you would teach in kind of underperforming schools around the city. So I became a teacher, and I taught fifth grade for 2 years. And then I kind of developed this. There was a lot of kind of fighting and violence in my school, even though it was an elementary school. And so I created a course. It was like a conflict resolution course using the arts. And so, because they didn't really have any arts programs in the school. So I was basically, the kids were writing plays together, coming up with dances, writing songs together, doing art projects together to learn how to work together. And then
that is remarkable.
And then if there was any arguments or whatever, we would use that as a lesson for how to deal with conflict without striking out physically or lashing out, So I did that for a while. There was a whole program, George Bush had No Child Left Behind, which basically involved a lot of testing and standardized tests. And I was like, this is not teaching kids how to be critical thinkers. It's teaching kids how to fill in bubbles and do like the bare minimum to get by. Like, it just was not fulfilling to me. I was like, these kids need more than that. And I just said, I just need to take a break. And I have a friend who was a location scout for movies. And she was like, oh, I can't do this job, but because I'm busy on another one, but they're asking if I know anybody. And she had seen I love photography too. And she's like, you're a really good photographer. You're really good with people. You'd be a good location scout. You've got a good eye. You're interested in film and TV. Like, why don't you just go interview? And so I went and interviewed and got the job. And he just was like, hired me like, I can't even remember how much I was making, but it was like, I was like the lowest paid person on the movie probably.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, this is a way in, And the movie was Michael Clayton with George Clooney.
Oh, yes. I love that film.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they had been working for several months and they were looking for this key location, which is the apartment where what's that actor's name? Tom Wilkinson? The guy who plays his friend who gets murdered in this loft. And they were looking for that loft. And I was like, okay. And they were like, that's your job. You got to find this loft. And so I was like standing I was like, I don't know how to even begin with this. And so I literally walked over to the elevator to go down and I guess wandered the streets of New York until I found a loft. I literally had no idea what to do.
Oh my gosh.
And I looked across the street at this building, literally across the street. And I was like, that building's cool. I love those windows. I'm going to go over there to see. So I literally go across the street. The guy tells me, oh, well, that's, there's a realtor. So I ended up getting into the building and they picked that apartment and literally they'd been looking for it for like weeks. And then all of a sudden,
holy shit,
I come on one day and find it. So they liked me. And I ended up working with that same production manager on a bunch of different TV shows and films. I worked on Definitely Maybe and this TV show Rescue Me, and worked on Ugly Betty, and just kind of this show on NBC called Kings, and it was cool. And then I got hired to be the assistant location manager on Eat, Pray, Love.
Yes.
In 2000, and I think it's like 9 or 10. Yeah, maybe 9. And I was just going to help with the New York portion. And the location manager wasn't able to, he was on another job. And he's like, can you take the producers around and find just some key locations to show them? And it was Ryan Murphy was the director. And then Brad Pitt's company, Plan B, Dee Dee Gardner was the producer, and Jeremy Kleiner. And so they all came to New York and I showed them around New York. And the line producer, his name is Stan Ludkowski, and they're like, oh, can you just show us around? And so I did for like, I think 3 or 4 days, drove them around. It was very organized. I've always been an organized person, very personable. And afterwards, Stan said, I know you're supposed to be in the locations department, but I need an assistant for the entire movie that will go all over the world, that will be with me the entire time. Would you be interested in that? And I would like, yes, I would like to go travel to Italy and India and Indonesia. Yes, please.
Follow Julia Roberts around the world. It sounds like a dream.
Yeah, and Javier Bardem and so I decided to do that, and I worked with Stan on that whole movie. And then when I was done, Dee Dee Gardner from Plan B was like, hey, we really enjoyed working with you. My assistant's leaving. Would you have any interest? And she's eventually leaving. Would you have an interest in working with me? But that would entail moving to Los Angeles. So it was a tough decision. And, I my partner Will, we talked long and hard about it, and we just decided that it was a really great opportunity. So I moved to LA to work for Plan B. Worked on movies like 12 Years a Slave and World War Z, and Killing Them Softly, and just some interesting projects. And so I was there, and that's really how I learned I just read so many scripts, like during that 4 years, 4+ years, I read so many scripts and worked in, development and tried to find projects. And, it was a wonderful opportunity, and I learned so much about producing there. I learned a lot about story and kind of singularity, like those projects that you want, a project that just, when you read it, you're like, this is like nothing else. Like there's nothing else like this. Mm-hmm. And, that's a hard thing, because so many movies feel so similar. I mean, for me, I have a real hard time watching superhero films, because I honestly, if I don't see the title at the front, it's impossible for me to tell the difference, because it's just battles. And
well, they are all the same. I mean, oh my gosh, I have to watch them because I'm married to a man who likes to watch things blow up in front of him so he can chew popcorn while doing it. So I do actually watch a lot of action movies and Marvel films, and it's like I feel the same way. I'm just like, oh god, okay.
I did see the other day though, on the flight back, I was watching Black Widow. Mm-hmm. And there was so much, it was about family and the character. And I was like, wow, that felt fresh to me. Like there was something that felt like it wasn't all battles. I mean, yes, there was amazing sequences of action, all that, but the heart of it was the story of longing for family. And I was like, oh, this is, I don't know. It felt really fresh, and the performances were good. And I really enjoyed it. So I'm just saying, like, typically in my work now, and when I'm looking for projects, I just want it to feel, I want something to kind of grab me and say, this is a story that needs to be told and hasn't been told before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love that.
So that was like a rambling.
That was beautiful.
Woven.
I tell you, Matt, you completely gave me chills when you talked about getting on the plane to New York. I mean, that's amazing that you made that decision to it sounds more like not only lie externally, but stop lying to yourself, Yes. And that was a creation of some aspect of personal direction and power, and that you probably never had experienced before. But I definitely chilled up at that for sure. And by the way, it was LA's loss, because you could have played Superman, or at the very least Clark Kent. Yes, he could have.
Thank you.
Do you want to know a funny thing?
Yes, please.
So remember I told you about having done that, like, kind of like professional theater in the Pacific Northwest after.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the directors from that got approached by a casting director, because they were doing, remember when they made that Superman that didn't do so well with like Brandon Routh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I auditioned for that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I totally bombed that audition, and I do remember what I was wearing. I was wearing a very interesting. I totally remember the whole thing and how.
Well, tell us about it if you can, because I love audition stories. We all have them, and they're amazing.
Oh, well, I had been in Argentina with my college friend, and decided that I needed like a fluorescent red and fluorescent blue Argentinian sweatshirt that popped up and had this popped up collar. So Superman, red, blue, I knew I needed to wear that. And I just, again, this is the thing. I've recently started acting again, just randomly, like weird things happened that I just decided to do it. And I love like the whole thing now about just being able to put yourself on tape and not having to worry so much. And I think it's much more similar to what filming's like, because if you mess up, you just do it again. Like that's what filming is, But when I was still at that stage I just was still worried about butching it up and trying. I'm like, oh, it's Superman. I have to be this certain thing. And so of course, when you're pretending to be something you're not, it's your acting's not going to be good. Like,
well, there's that layer, right? There's like that layer on
Yeah.
top of who you are, which is like no one can get through. It's so funny because I see this so often working, because I mean, work with a lot of actors doing self-tapes and, messing around here in LA and helping people book things and not book things and, just make a go of it. But I see so often I'll have friends come in to do a self-tape and they've got an idea of what that breakdown is and that they think they aren't that thing. And then they think they have to like add a layer on to be that thing. But it's like the casting director wants to see you because they've seen your headshot and they think they want to see you, So always the notes are just like, stop it. Like, stop putting on a voice. Stop trying to be something you're not. Just like they want to see you. That's it. Period. End of the story,
Well, this is the thing is that, so you're really not doing yourself any favors by giving them what you think they want.
No, ever.
Because then when they are actually looking for you the next time, they're not going to even think of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, give them you, and you may not be right for that part, but they're going to, if you give a good performance, I mean, that person was a great actor. They're not right for this role, but then they're going to remember you for the one that you are right for. But if you've given them something crappy and false, they're just going to be like, okay, I don't know who that person is, and they're a bad actor.
But by the way, isn't this true of life though too? It's like if when you're trying to give people what you think they might want, you're never really giving anybody a fair shot at who you really are in the world. Where it's like if you just go like, well, what do I want, and put that out there into the world in a kind of shameless, confident way, then people really have a chance to go like, cool, this is the person I want to work with, or it's not, But at least they know who you are. My God, it feels that's like freedom to me thinking about it that way.
We always talk about actors, since we're on the other side of the table most of the time. I wish that all actors could have that experience of being on the other side, because the thing is that when you're casting, you want that person to be the one. And 100%. If actors knew that, they would walk in being their authentic selves. Usually you'll talk to actors. I know we've all had this experience when you book a role or something happens. Their audition maybe wasn't their best day. Maybe something just happened at home. Maybe they didn't even care about the role. Maybe they knew nothing about it and they just walked in and gave it and walked out. There was so little stakes on carried into that room that they just gave us a performance that was their authentic self. Yeah. But then there's the other side of it too, where you're not necessarily auditioning for that role. You're auditioning for the people in the room to remember you as a person who's capable and is an actor. And those are super important things to remember.
I totally agree. And it's been I will say, working at Plan B and being on those casting calls for big projects and hearing the conversations and talking about, various actors and and all of that. And then doing this with Ted Kay as well, and going through this whole casting process, it is 99.99% when you don't get a role, it has nothing to do with you.
Yep.
It might be your hair color, it might be your size, it might be the fact that you look like two other people that have been cast. We really, God, that woman just looks too similar to this one. It'll be confusing. I don't know. There's just so many things. Or, for us, it was like, we can't. We want it to feel really real. But that person, they're a great actor, but those, they have veneers on their teeth, and nobody in Montana would have that. Or, just things that you just can't control. But I will say, you also see some incredible performance. You're like, they are not right for this, but man, do I want to work with that person again and keep them on the list for future projects, it's really interesting. It's just, it was fascinating. It's fascinating having been an actor and then seeing how it really gave me a lot more, I've talked to my friends about this and even for, if I don't know if I don't really have a strong desire to be an actor, but but if there is something like I want to go back and work in Montana, and there's a lot of stuff filming there, and there's not a lot of people in the Screen Actors Guild in Montana, so it gives me a good excuse to go home to work and be with my family and all of that. So, you know, I might still keep doing that, but ultimately, having been through the whole casting process and on both sides, it just gives me a lot more. I just don't get attached to anything, and I can have a lot more fun because I realize it really doesn't have much to do with me. It's like, am I right for this? And it is so subjective anyway, you know?
It sounds like so much fun, like what you're describing now, the way you're approaching things, even just in general with your life. It sounds like there's a playfulness maybe that there wasn't when you were trying to do this all these years ago. And in some ways, like, isn't that just magnetically attractive? Like, what people want to be around people that are like playful and joyful and fun and like good to be around. Like, I mean, you're like, oh, I don't know whether I want to pursue this, but like, I'd wager there's a bunch more acting roles coming, you know, just because of how you are being with this and how you are letting the work free into the world. It's so wonderful.
Yeah. And I think that what gets really, I mean, you know, I just turned 50 and
congratulations. You're halfway there.
Yeah. No, but I really do think that the older you get, the more free you feel, especially if you can let go of all the like look, I used to be a very ambitious person. I think I'm still ambitious in a way, but my ambition is to do things I love with people I love. That's what I say. Like I'm just saying no to so many things now, and it has nothing to do with that I don't think it's a, you know, good project or whatever. It's just like I just have to trust my gut, and I'm not going to invest my time in something unless I really, really, really believe in it, or if it's, you know, or if it's just going to be fun. Like I just want to enjoy, you know, enjoy my. Like, look, I'm a storyteller. I just want to tell stories, but I want to tell the stories I love with people I love, and
that's as good a goal as any.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that you get to that certain point because you know, I'm 42 and same thing happened to me where I'm very ambitious and I have huge goals for where I want to go with things. But really at the end of the day, I also, somewhere along the line, it changed and I just wanted to spend time with the people that I love. And whether that was in work or in play, it's what I wanted to do. And it seems to be working out pretty well at this point. I think there's something where you take that pressure off a little bit. I mean, you've got the Kevin Harts and the Steve Harveys and guys who like just go and they're just like on it all the time. And I admire them like so much, but I had to just take a step back because I was just clearly not doing the things that I wanted to do and loving the people I wanted to love and all of that. That was very important to me to kind of take that step back. So I love hearing that perspective.
I do also think that ultimately it's very hard to be a creator and to tell stories if you're not actually living life and enjoying life and having experiences.
Oh my God, it's so true.
I mean, you're going to be a much better storyteller if you can actually bring in, you know, if you're, you know, real life experiences. But if your whole life is just looking for work and like this sort of clawing for what you think success is, you're not living life and you're not allowing yourself to be a multidimensional storyteller. You're just kind of stuck in this lane, you know? I think that the best storytellers are the best life livers.
God, that's so true. I really, really believe that. And I feel that with my own life too. Like the more I've sort of started to just enjoy and relish my existence on the planet, the deeper I'm able to go with my work every single time, you know. It's funny because it's also a thing you bring. I mean, Matt obviously has noted every single script I've ever written. He is one of my gatekeepers, my most treasured gatekeeper. And I almost feel like he's like who's the Joaquin Phoenix character in The Gladiator? I feel like Matt Flanders stands like this over my scripts when I hand them in, and I wait for his thumb to like go down or come up, and then I'm like, okay, we're good to go.
I'm glad you were not like Joaquin Phoenix in The Joker.
No,
I was like,
no.
Right.
Oh, wow, okay,
No, that was not the compliment I was looking to give you. But yeah, I just feel so often the things you're offering me when you are giving me notes is you're adding more life. It's so strange. You gave me a gorgeous note for the last script I just wrote, and it was just tiny little offering of what a character could do physically, and it changed the entire scene. Just this one idea that Matt gave me, and it really is just it's like a testament to how you live and what you bring to things, because I think there is that richness in you, and it's so tangible, and yeah, it's just such a wonderful offering. I wonder if you could speak a bit about, you spoke about sex, we talk about success all the time, like striving for success, trying to achieve success. Do you have a definition of it now, or has it changed? And what do you think what is your relationship to it in this new version of your life?
Honestly, success used to be, to me, about influence and numbers.
Yeah. Like
this much in a bank account, this much being paid for a gig, this name on a resume, this whatever. I think success right now, to me, is much more about a feeling of just a sense of calm. It's being rid of the anxiety and the kind of need to want more. And it's just, right now, I feel successful. And that's because I feel at ease with trusting that the right things will come to me at the right time.
Yeah.
There's like a sense of patience. There's a sense of joy in terms of looking at the future and feeling very hopeful. Of there's so many options of what can happen next. Saying yes, feeling okay with saying yes, feeling okay with saying no. So I don't know. That's really heady and sort of woo-woo, but
no, it makes complete sense.
But to me, success is like that feeling of we've talked a lot about authenticity, and it's like being able to be authentic and really liking what you see and what you're doing.
That's beautiful.
Yes. I love that. Liking it. I love that you said that success is about a feeling and not about the number or about, those tangible things. Because I think that is it. I think that is it. It's just about the feeling. And the more you feel that feeling, the more the numbers and the stats will come to you if that's what you want.
Yeah.
But it's about that feeling of success that you have to carry with you. It's that internal attitude and that person that you walk around as that really makes all the difference. That's exactly how I've been, trying to live my life as of late.
And I really had a big realization this week. Like, I will say, there's something that I think a lot of actors and a lot of creatives, you want those people from your past to be like, you have this thing like, oh, I'm going to show them and I'm going to become something. And, those people like tease me or whatever, or even your parents, you're like, oh, my parents are going to be so proud of me. And, you're just like really focused on the past. And I really think that you have to let that go. And what you want to be focused on is the next generation. So whether it's, you don't want your parents to be proud of you, you want your kids to be proud of you.
Yeah.
You don't want your high school classmates to be proud of you or to be in awe of you. You want some random teenager in some random town to be in awe of you.
Yeah.
Like, you want to set new examples for people and show them what a good life looks like. Not to prove something to people from your past, but to set an example for future generations. That's,
oh my God, that's so beautiful.
That to me is something that I'm working on, because I definitely still have that stuff in the back of my mind of, wow, I just hope my parents are super proud of me, and it would be great if they would, and they're very, excited about the things I'm doing and such, but you have to kind of let go of that and do it for yourself, and do it to set examples for future generations, I think.
I think that's so incredible
100%.
to think of it that way. I've never thought of it like that, and I think it's something I actually want to, take to heart and think and keep, actually, because it is so strange how I wonder if it's just because as creatives, oftentimes we were misunderstood the way we grew up, and we always were, especially actors and writers and stuff. We're often the deeper feeling individuals in a community, and we're the ones who are kind of shamed for feeling things or for being different. And I wonder whether it is that because we've all been a little kicked, perhaps, or repressed or squished in some way, that it is that the ego does that thing where it says that I'll show you. But it is so terrible, because if that is why we're doing things, we're not serving anybody, actually, except that old version of ourselves. And that old version, I mean, for all of us, because I know you both, that version doesn't exist anymore. Those versions are so yesterday. So yeah, I love that. I'm going to keep that.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to kind of, I don't think that anybody, if you're acting or you're writing or you're doing this job to be famous and prove something to everybody, I think you're going to be a long time striving for more and more, because I don't think you're never going to get to the point where you feel whole, wanting everybody to somehow, prove something to all these people from the past.
I know it so well. And it was this. I mean, that was my journey. Like, I had it to a degree. I got more of it, and then I kept chasing more, and it would never have been enough. I know even if I'd got the things that I'd set out to achieve in LA specifically as an actor, I would have been an absolute mess, because it would never have fed me. It's that like endless hungry monster, that just needs to be fed all the time. It's terrible. I have seen, when I first came to LA, I worked for some celebrities. I've worked for a lot. I've seen a lot of big names, and I will say that those people who had it too easy and it all just came to them are struggle more later on, of course,
because they didn't have to do the evolution, and they didn't have to kind of grow and develop a thick skin and find the greater meaning in things, and find the drive and what really matters to them. It was just sort of all happened, and I think later in life they kind of hit some roadblocks, and then it's all the harder. But I think that if you the struggle is real, but the struggle is what gives you all the layers and gives you all the emotions that you need to kind of draw on to be good at what you do.
Of course.
Yeah.
How are you choosing projects now? Like, how are you, how are you filtering? What is the sort of the way you're filtering through with things these days?
Honestly, it's all about feeling. It's just a gut instinct of, wow, do I want to tell? Like I said earlier, is this a story that needs to be told? Has it been told before? And then it really is about my gut feeling about the collaborators.
Yeah.
Is this, because look, like on Ted K, I mean, this was a 7-year process or whatever.
It's wild.
And luckily I really love Tony and I really respect him. We definitely have gone through. I mean, it was tough, you know, and we definitely have struggled, but I really respect him for fighting this hard to tell a story that he, and you know, he fought to tell the story he wanted to tell. And at times I couldn't let go of my own ego to be like, well, why isn't he taking I have this idea, but ultimately, like, he's the director, he's the writer. Like, he fought really hard to tell the story he wanted to tell, and I respect him so much for that.
Yeah.
But moving forward, I understand that films in particular can take a long time to get made and can take, you know, years and years of your life. So you better be doing it with people you love, you know, or really respect. And you have to, and the story itself has to be something that you really want out there, because otherwise, like I said earlier, you know, I want to spend time with my friends, my family, my dogs, my, you know, like doing the things I love to do. And if I'm going to take away from all of that, then it better be for a good reason.
Yeah.
So that's it. I mean, that's how I'm picking projects. Like, do I love the project? Do I love the people?
This movie was definitely that. Definitely a good reason. It's brilliant.
So.
Yeah, before we let you go, I want to talk about it. Just one of the things that's so impactful about that film, because I want everyone to see this, like, legitimately, like, please go see this movie or buy it on iTunes, which is how I watched it. And it's an immersive experience. I always do two things when I watch movies. I watch it with my normal surround sound, and then I watch it with headphones, because I like to get the experience. I think composers, sound editors, sound designers, even on production sound, they don't get enough love, and because they are creating this world, and this movie has a world that's created in it so immersively. But the thing is, you painted a picture in this film of a real man, of a real human being, who, quite frankly, I didn't disagree with for the first 40 minutes. You know,
Me neither.
Yeah, the old man, get off my lawn, and just, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like, it's too loud here, and also just his anger with the deforestation and the things like that. There was so much about him that you rope us in, and it creates this character who is not only sympathetic, but you really get to understand what's really not only driving him, but also making him just sad. You know, what's giving him just basic emotions. The picture of a true human being and digging deep into his reasons for what he did was so masterfully done.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was.
I feel like, for me, the movie, I mean, it means something different for everybody who watches it. But I say, for me, this is a story of what can happen when you disconnect yourself from other humans. I feel like we all need human interaction, and that's what scares me about technology, is that we start relying on that to give us this sort of feeling that we are with others, but we're not. You need direct human interaction, and I'm not talking about just touch. I'm talking about the energy that is created when you are working with, are being with, are just sitting with another human. Like, it's so important, and he didn't have that, and he created that for himself. And so I guess I would say is, like, when you see people pulling away, like good friends and such, like, don't let it happen. You know, they need the human interaction, and and so that's sort of a huge part of the story for me. You know, on top of the environmental stuff and technology stuff, it's just like, hey, we need each other. You know,
Oh my
Even
God,
in a
we're
world that's more
hardwired for
connected than ever in that way.
Yeah.
We're so connected now in so many ways.
But in some ways, like Matt's saying, it's like a counterfeit connection, you know, because it's like it can't be a substitute for the real thing. It really can't. You're so good at it too. I mean, Matt is such a good person at, like, I always feel like, fuck, I should have done that before you did. He's so good at, like, picking up the phone and calling, you know, and like maintaining relationships in that way. It's just such a wonderful thing that you do in friendship. And I'm always like, damn it, he beat me to it. I need to get better at that. But, like, yeah, it is. It's so important.
my friends are always like, they're like, you're like the only person who actually calls.
He really is.
I like a conversation, you know. I think
It's so lovely.
it just feels good to hear someone's voice. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so lovely.
That's why we're loving this so much, because I mean, Josette and I now see each other a lot,
We've
you know,
been
and
seeing
talk
a
a
lot
lot
of each
now,
other.
you know, and so, but having an actual conversation, you know, we want to ultimately have these in person, but this is the next best thing, and it's just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's changed our weeks and days for sure.
Yeah, it's
No,
so
that's
wonderful
great.
just to have this time to connect. A quick little thing. Well, one thing. Where can everybody see Ted K right now? Where is it available?
If you go to tedkmovie.com, you'll find out which theaters it's playing in. It's currently on 28 screens across the U.S.
Brilliant.
We're number 16 on Apple iTunes.
Hey,
Nice.
that's amazing.
You know, which is awesome. So you can watch it there. You know, strangely, I would never kind of drive anybody anywhere, but Amazon has this strange thing there that they don't put your movie in those browsing sections unless people are already watching it.
Right.
So Amazon's a great play like Apple actually lists them just because they're out there, but Apple does, but Amazon doesn't really list it unless people are watching it. So it'd be really helpful if they have the choice to go ahead and go to Amazon and check it out.
Great.
I'm learning so much through this whole process because I literally have done everything through, you know, development to financing to now, you know, festivals to sales to international sales to, you know, the release of a film in theaters and digital. And I'm just learning so much. But this one, so you can get it on Apple, you can get it on Amazon, Vudu, Google Play, Xbox Watch, like any platform. And again,
Awesome.
tedkmovie.com shows you all the options of where you can see it.
Fantastic. I really hope everybody does sort of go and do the Amazon thing and just support this film. Obviously get to a theater if you can, because it really is so beautiful in a theater. There's just no substitute for it. It's remarkable.
And I have to say, no matter what happens with this film, like I hope that Charlton Copley gets his.
We haven't spoken about Sholto because we were trying to focus on you and we were talking about you, but oh my God, we have to have a moment for Sholto. Good God. He is extraordinary, Matt. Like
the way he works, his talent is undeniable, but just his commitment to this and his willingness to kind of go there and go deep is phenomenal. I just think his performance is. I mean, I'm looking at the actors who are like nominated for awards this year, and I was like, none of those. I mean, they're great performances, but none of them hold a candle to what this man did.
Well, the thing is,
I hope next year he'll get some recognition because he.
Please God. Well, the fact that he's able to hold your attention, I think that was the thing. Is like I did not get bored of looking at his face once. I just wanted more, and I'm like, when you have it was documentary style, following this man an entire way through the film, and it's a lengthy film, you know, and my God, he is captivating.
And he's playing a character that nobody likes.
No,
I mean, like
that's
none
the
of us,
thing.
we already know what he did, and so but you're captivated by not only the performance, but I don't think we're giving anything away, but you ease us into other faces along the way.
Yeah.
And it's pretty deep into the movie until we see another face. We hear voices, but we don't really see another actor. And so you're just immersed in this man's world.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's like, oh, there's other people here.
Yeah.
It's like you're just so in his head.
It's remarkable.
And I think that was a really interesting choice. Like, you know, Tony, the director, I don't know if you guys remember the scene where he's pushing his bike up the road. It's towards the beginning of the film, and a guy picks him up.
Yes.
In the truck. And then he tries to put the seatbelt on, but it's not working. And the guy like messes with him and kind of jerks the car. And he's like, just kidding. It doesn't work.
Such a great scene.
Charlton's face goes through about 1,000 different emotions in like a minute. And it is so incredible. And I think it's very interesting. Tony chose not to even show the other actor's face. You only hear his voice.
It's brilliant.
You're in Ted's world the entire time, and thank God Charlton was our Ted, because he is such a captivating. He's got such a captivating face, but his performance, I think, is one for the one for the history books. Like, so
I totally agree.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's funny because a movie like this, it toes the line perfectly between long lens, close up, super shallow for so much of it, but you don't feel claustrophobic because there's these big vistas and these big wide shots. But when you're on him, you're seeing everything that's going on in his face and Ted's face.
There's just so much, he just gives us so much. And so I feel like we were, another one of those serendipitous things where you find the right person at the right time. And he really is just a joy to work with, a great collaborator, a great creator. And I would do any project with him anytime.
Oh, makes me so happy to hear that also. It's just so nice to know when there's an actor as good of a person as he is an actor. It's just the best.
He's a great man and just lovely human.
Oh, well, wonderful. I'm so excited for everyone to see this film, and thank you for giving us your time.
Of course, thank you so much for the support, and I'm really appreciative of the time, and look forward to hearing what everybody thinks of the movie, and enjoy Ted K.
Oh my gosh, lots of love to you, darling. Speak soon.
Thank you so much, Matt. It was a real pleasure. Thank you.